Leo Osahor. How the hell are you? Last
Good to
time
see you, Nicky.
we talked, yeah, last time we talked, you were in Colombia, which is a few weeks ago. But I think you're back and you're settled, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We got to know each other through the specialty coffee community that we're both part of, and you've got a great story to tell. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. So let's come back home from Colombia and get a little introduction from yourself. Who are you? Where do you live? And why are we talking today?
Sure. Thanks, Nicky. It's great to see you again. Great to be back. And thank you for having me on your show. My name's Leo. I'd like to say I'm a world explorer. I love coffee. I love travel. I work in tech. I'm a huge fan of creativity and people and storytelling. And so I think we'll weave this into our journey and conversation today. We share some similar passions around people and coffee. I could also share my journey of where that all started, but really excited to be here and to follow along on that journey.
Great. Yeah, there's lots and lots of little rabbit holes that we could potentially go down today. One of them, of course, is the fact that you, shall we say, left the corporate world and you've started your own thing, and I'm really excited about hearing that story as well, because there's a few little similarities there with my own journey. So let's start with coffee, shall we? So you were in Colombia. Was that on a coffee mission, or was that on a different mission?
A little bit of both. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. I love to travel. I have three favorite cities. One is Medellin, Colombia. The other is Barcelona in Spain. And the last is Singapore. I live on the west coast of the United States in a state called Arizona, most known for its temperature. It is incredibly hot here during the summer. We're looking at, triple digits on the Fahrenheit scale. So that's around the 40s in centigrade. So it's always nice to escape when the temperatures get super hot. And so this was one of those escapes. I'd been working really hard. I was like, all right, it's time to step away for a little bit. And so every time I go to a different city, I start with coffee shops and art museums. And I think that's the way I discover cities, whether that's walking or jogging. And so every time I've gone there, of course, Colombia is one of the meccas in the world, if you so to speak, when it comes to coffee production, coffee exports. And I also grew up around gardening and flowers and things like that, and that is another thing the city is known for. They're one of the number one
Yeah.
exporters of flowers. And so if you've ever been to that city, it's so filled with flora and fauna. And so you feel like you are in a city that was built around gardens and forests and trees, and so it's incredibly relaxing. And so I use these opportunities to connect with coffee shops, roasteries, and things like that. One, to build relationships, and two, just to explore coffee. I
Yeah.
I actually had a first experience with a type of coffee bean called Pacamara, I believe that's called.
Camara, right.
And this is, of course, when coffee beans are harvested, they're split in the machine by sizes. And so the Pacamara is actually one of the largest coffee beans, and it has a complex flavor profile and things like that. I didn't know. And so I had the opportunity to meet a coffee shop owner. We had a great conversation, and he was like, hey, would you like to try one of these?
Yeah.
And so I think
Yeah.
that's the unexpected benefit of just roaming around the world and meeting coffee shop owners. You get to try different things, learn different things. And so that was something I
Yeah.
took away from this recent trip.
Right. Well, there's a whole lot of stuff to dive into there. Where did your love of flowers come from? Were you born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona?
Great question. So no, my dad is Nigerian and my mom is West Indian, and
Okay.
so that was my mom's from Trinidad and Tobago, and so I think that was where my love for flowers came. Every time we were growing up, I think there was a constant refrain to me and my brothers around water the flowers, water the plants, and that was morning
Yeah.
and night. And so we
Was this in
grew up.
Phoenix?
This was in Nigeria.
In
This was in
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Okay. Wow. So
Yeah.
you grew up in Nigeria. Okay.
Yeah, I grew up all around the world. My dad was in the military, so we traveled quite a bit, and so I think that was where my love for exploration came in. And
Right.
and so flowers of all types, shapes, size, colors. And so I think that's something that's rooted deeply within me, in the sense of
Yeah.
appreciating nature, appreciating color, as you look at the different types of flowers. And so that's one of the reasons why that city appeals to me. But it's something that's really anchored in my background.
Yeah. What was it like growing up as the son of a Nigerian father who was part of the U.S. military, who went back to Nigeria, stationed for the U.S. military? I
Oh,
presume
well,
it was for the U.S. military, was it?
no, so it was for the Nigerian military.
Oh, the
And
Nigerian military.
the
Okay.
Nigerian military. So he traveled a lot. He was in the engineering corps, and so there's a lot of overseas training. So training in London, where my parents met, training in the United States, and so that was that travel circuit. And so I think being the child of a multicultural home, you get a sense of the world, you get a sense of different patterns of thinking, and you don't know it at the time. You're just growing up and making new friends everywhere you go. This is pre-Facebook, pre-social, of course. And so you really have a worldview that is open to learning different perspectives. Learn how to adjust very quickly. You learn how to read situations very quickly. And all of that comes, yeah, when you're growing up. You don't really know these things, but as you mature and you go into like business or school, you start to see the benefits of diverse viewpoints. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that I'm grateful for as I look back on my journey.
Did you go to international school all the way through?
I did. I went to some international schools. I went to a military school in Nigeria, and then when I was in the UK, I did a couple of my A levels, and then some time with the London College of Business and Computing. That was really where I started my journey in tech as a
Yeah.
Microsoft certified systems engineer. And so it's again, and when you talk about places like London, you're surrounded by people from all around the world too. So that I think also fed that perspective.
So clearly, the international schools gave you the accent that you've carried through to today, because I can't pick up any hint of a Nigerian accent at all, or I can't hear any hint of a West Indian accent at all either. So, and it's my pet game. I love trying to pick where people are from.
I think that
can't.
this is one I stump people that do that a lot. And so I was in Trinidad earlier this year, and it starts to come out. Also with my London friends, it's like the more you spend time there, you slip back into old patterns. But yes, I think that because of that too, I tend to adjust quite from a multilingual perspective. I'm also learning Spanish and French. And so I think that also helps as well, where your intonation, accents, and things like that, you tend to blend in very, very quickly.
The inflection, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know what kind of friends you make as you grow up in the international school system. Are they friends for life? Are they fleeting acquaintances? And do you still keep in touch with people?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think that social media has made so one, it has redefined what friendships are, and it's made it easier to have lighter touch. And so my approach towards friendships is quality over quantity. And so I tend to know a lot of people, but have a very small inner circle. And so I think that what's bound my friendships as I've traveled around the world is really a commonness of values versus geography. And because of that, it's easy to make deep friendships very quickly. And I think this is something I've learned because it's harder to make friends as an adult. But then as you learn to be more vulnerable, as you learn to open up, you are able to identify folks that have common interests, common values, and then it's easy to keep in touch. It's literally a WhatsApp number added to a WhatsApp group, and that is it. If folks are on Instagram, I'm not on Facebook, but and I don't post very often on social media. But it's always interesting to follow friends that way. But I've often found when you have a common set of values, it's easier.
That's the piece I'm really interested in, because as a son of a military father, and I presume your mum fell into that world. Maybe she was part of the military herself. I don't know. However, when it comes to making friends with people of a similar values set, how easy is it to spot that somebody has a set of similar values? And are your values clearly defined? I mean, do you know what you stand for? And did you always know what you stood for in terms of your values?
Yeah, I think it's been a journey. I think this is for all of us, right? I think that we have these defining moments in life. And with each defining moment, you get to pick how you respond. And over time, your value system forms. And of course, you hit your thresholds. And then, of course, you evolve over and over and over again. And there are things that change and there are things that stay the same. I think for me, one of the things that's really helped me, it's tangential, but very applicable, is mindfulness and meditation. And so this is something I started meditating many years ago, actually. And one of the things that's really helped me do, among others, is be present. And so my patterns in the past used to be all wrapped up in the future, all wrapped up in the past. And so it's really helped me learn how to be present. Now, how does that apply to values? When you're meeting people, it's very easy to start a conversation about the weather or current events. But then by being present, you kind of observe what they talk about, what they laugh about, what they point out. And you're paying attention to, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, I like that too. Or, wow, we are totally not aligned here. And I think that in itself is its own kind of signal. That's, oh, wow, we could dig deeper here. Oh, you like coffee, for example, or you're a huge fan of creativity and design, and we can go into those type of topics. And so that's where I think I identify folks that share my values. And then over time, you start to explore. And of course, disclosure always tends to be quite progressive. And so you're like, hey, talk about this part of your life, talk about this part of your life. And over time, wow, we have a lot in common. And then you've discovered that, oh my goodness, this could be a lifelong friend. Or, it could just be for the season. And I'm open to that too. And so I think that that's where I have found commonness of values. And I think over time, I've been able to define mine: respect, kindness, a commitment to excellence, commitment to creativity, being human. I think that's one of them.
Yeah.
It's really powerful that sometimes it's the most simple things in our world of complexity that really make the difference.
As a person who has grown up transient and in international schooling systems and so on, would you consider that a person of your ilk seeks out friendships more than people who come from a more, in inverted commas, stable environment? Do you crave friendships more, or are you come see come sa? It is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's quite the opposite, actually. I have learned how to carry my sunshine with me. I spend a lot of time. I spent 5 years in London. So you learn very quickly not to be influenced by the weather. You've got to carry your sunshine with you. And I spent a lot of time in Seattle as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so, wow, the weather's like this, but you got to be you. And so being able to be self-sustaining, especially in a world pre-social media, it's something that, and if you look back, you could say, wow, that was developed as a coping mechanism, where it's like, wow, I don't have any friends, but I have to keep going. And then you develop friends along the way. And so I think I've been able to develop autonomously and carry my sense of self with me as I go. And then, of course, build friendships. I do consider myself an introvert I've built the muscle of being able to reach out to people and talk. And in my past, I've had several failed startups. And one of the things that I can point to was an inability to sell, an inability to make connections with people that I've had to work on. So I think that being able to recognize that and say, okay, great, I'm going to go work on that, but at the same time, be authentic to who I am. I was one of my really good friends got married, and I spoke at his wedding, and he's very extroverted, and I talked about how one of the best things to do for survival as an introvert is to be adopted by an extrovert. And you get access to their networks, you get access to their friends. And so I've had the gracious privilege of being part of both worlds, right? Like being able to be a self-contained unit, but then seek out friendships that intersect with my values and interests.
Yeah, I'm fascinated at this very early point in our relationship that you speak so fluidly and so fluently about this. You've got a self-contained confidence about you. You've got a very high state of self-awareness, or a very high level of self-awareness, which comes through so strongly. It's very interesting and very amazing. I want to take you back to those pivotal moments that you talked about. You actually recall them as defining moments in life. It sounds like there's been a few, so I'd love to delve in there a little deeper and understand, give us a flavor of some of those.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think that there are quite a few. The one that comes to mind that's the most recent was actually the passing of my dad. He passed away 3 years ago, and he was 76, 77. And it was a turbulent time for my family because my dad was this rock, this just center of the family. He did everything. And you don't realize that until the rock is gone. And I come from a home of three other brothers. And so we're all men in the family. And so watching my dad and of course him passing was a shock to our family system. And then 6 months later, unbeknownst to all of us, my older brother was also sick. And so he passed away 6 months after my dad. And so we had this moment as a family where we had to come together very quickly. And we're all around the world. And so now I'm the oldest in my family, taking care of my aging mother. And so you bring everything you are into those types of moments. How to bring people together, how to, in the midst of the noise and the emotional turbulence, okay, what's next? What do we need to do? And you also discover your strengths very quickly. I'm the one that, when my family turns to in times of, all right, what do we need to do? 1, 2, 3, let's plan, let's get this thing together. I bring that sense of execution. Okay, let's plan this out, let's get this thing done, let's make the hard decisions. My brothers do fare better on the emotional side. And so when my mom needs to talk to someone, they're okay, great. Like she reaches out to them. And I've learned to accept my place there. That's okay.
Do you bring calm?
I believe so. I try and, bring a sense of calm and clarity. And I think I've also learned that along the way from my training as a product manager in tech, where it's like one of your primary jobs is to bring clarity of all the things that are happening, whether that's with the product or with customers or with, the business. You have to be able to say, this is the most important thing. And I think that muscle has been developed over time. So you think about, for me, defining moments or moments like that, where you have to decide very quickly what matters to you as an individual and the people that are around you that, whether you knew it or not, have grown to depend on you. And as a result of that, doing your utmost best. You may not get it right all the time, but doing your utmost best to serve them the best you can in a way that I think lands the present as well as kind of lays the groundwork for the future as well.
I'm sorry to hear about the double tragedy in your family, but what was the eventual outcome of that for you and for your family? So you coped with that best you could and using all the skills and talents available to you. So what was the ultimate outcome? Has it turned out well for you all?
I believe so. I mean, I think that we are closer now as a family than before. And I think as a family, you tend to take things for granted, right? Like, dad will always be there to call. Like, my older brother will always be there. You have squabbles as any other family has. But I think the outcome, and that's another thing I think I've learned over time, whereas we have to face the world the way it is, not the way we want it to be. And if you can do that, if you can truly accept this is what it is, it really does equip you to figure out, okay, now what? Whether that's who you are, your values, financial status, like habits, whatever. If you fully accept the world the way it is, it really does open up doors for what's next. And so absolutely. I think that we are definitely a lot closer. One of the things that I think I've tried to do is really, for lack of a better word, share the burden. And so being able to rely on my brothers for different responsibilities, around the home and all the things that we have to do. And I think that has also helped as well. And so the before and after, I think we're definitely tighter than prior. And then, of course, I think that in itself equips us to make decisions as a family moving forward, right? And so not taking things for granted or using the opportunities as best we can to communicate and connect with each other. All of those things were lessons that were extracted from this. And I think that being able to, that's another value, learning. And because you can't learn without adapting and change. And so being able to say, wow, we learned this here, let's go apply this in this particular situation. And so there are multiple things in life, conflict resolution, decision making, prioritization, all of these things that sometimes may happen in a business context are very, very relevant many times when emotions are running high. And those are the times that really set these types of things apart.
Yeah, and if I may make another observation, I'm listening to your language, I'm listening to your thought processes, and I hear a lot of principles that can be applied in the corporate world, and that are used in the corporate world almost as buzzwords or almost as a lip service, you know. But the difference here is that I'm hearing that all of these things you've applied to your life in a very real way, and you think about them deeply, and they mean a lot to you, and that's quite different to somebody who's going through the motions of working in the corporate world and just going through the bullshit, for want of a better word. You've managed to translate it all into tools that you can use in your everyday life, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I agree. There is a sense of when folks are on autopilot and they're just doing what they're told, and you turn on, you clock in, you turn off, clock out. But there's a little bit of get off the treadmill. What are you really doing? And what do you really, really want to do? And I don't think that question is ever fully answered, because today is its own blank tapestry. Today's never happened before, right? And so today we can reach out to the same people, but with a different message. Today we can do things that we've never done before. So as a result of that, like being able to see things in a new light versus getting off autopilot versus staying on autopilot is a very, very powerful thing. And I think that's, as I think about some of the new things that I'm doing right now, it really helps me say, okay, this is coming from an authentic place versus trying to stay on a path that I've always been on, or trying to fulfill certain needs or impress certain people. Oh, absolutely not. Like, I think that one's very, very clear in terms of why I do what I do and where I want to go.
Yeah, it's not every day I get stumped by a line, but you've trotted out something that has truly stumped me, and today has never happened before. Is that your original material?
I doubt it. I think that a lot of folks have said that in multiple ways.
I've never heard that before. That's wonderful, yeah.
I'm glad. There it is for you right there.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Wow, it's so true. Tell me about the influence of having a West Indian mother, and the coagulation of cultures there between the West Indies and Nigeria. What was that like growing up?
Oh boy. Again, I think when you're growing up and you're in it, there's a fish know it's wet. You don't really know that you're in these experiences. And so my dad was very focused on education. It's a strong theme in the family. So education, achievements, awareness, learning. I don't remember a time when it's like, hey, Dad, I want this toy. And, the resources were there. But if you could say, hey, I need this textbook or I need this book. Oh, absolutely. Like the funds just become automatically available. Versus my West Indian mother, who it's super chilled. Like if you go to the West Indies, Trinidad, Jamaica, it's a very relaxed environment. There's no hustle. It's like, hey, we're going to the beach. Where are you rushing to? Life is for living. It's not, And I think there was a very interesting balance there between this sense of achievement and the sense of embracing life. And I think that if I look back at my journey, the first perspective dominated that part of my life, where it was all achievement oriented, all goal oriented. And it wasn't until grad school that I really began to embrace the other side, which is take a vacation, get to know yourself, get to know the people around you. And I think it's a combination of, at that point, I'd hit certain goals in my life. And so when you start to ask yourself, well, wow, I've hit all my goals, what's next? Then you start to look back at some of the framing that you had when you were younger, and you realize very quickly, wow, not necessarily life is short, but that then there's more to life than just milestones and goals. And so I think that's how I can wrap up that kind of multicultural education. You don't know it when you're growing up, but when you're exposed to it, you pay attention like, wow, that's really what I was being taught there.
What was your father's why?
Oof. I think he was really about achievement. He was really about achievement. And as I put together his all the materials for his farewell, and I'm looking back at his achievements, I mean, like, and this is another thing, like, he's dad, he was dad, like, just, but to others, he was professor, teacher, father, mentor, officer, all of these things. And I look at all his accomplishments, like, wow, I didn't realize how accomplished he was. And I think this is common across children and their parents. You don't really know your parents. The founder of Expedia, I was one of his talks in Seattle. His name's Rich Barton. And he was telling a story about one of his kids in high school. And his kid was doing this business project. And he was trying to give his kid advice, on the project. And the kid was like, yeah, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, can you just... It's like, dude, I founded Expedia. I founded Zillow. I've done all these things. Are you trying to tell me? But to his son, he's just dad, And so I think that I can resonate with that story very closely in the sense that we don't know what we have. Like, this is right in front of you. So yes, I think my dad was really all about achievement. And that was really, I think I took a big piece of that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that your mother didn't have a why. Just, however, I'm assuming that she assumed a role in the family. Did she? What was that role?
She did. I think that role was more supportive. I think my mom was more traditional, in the sense of dad set the direction, mom supported and kept the family going. She was a nurse by trade, by training, and so. But a lot of that, I think by the time my younger brother was born, or even me, I think me, like, that career had to be put to the side. And so she became a full-time mom and housewife and things like that. And so she brought the nurture while dad brought the provision. So very traditional kind of family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as happens in some cases, when the, shall we say, in inverted commas again, the powers of the primary breadwinner start to wane, you can see the other person emerging and kind of being reborn in terms of their career, in terms of their aspirations or their drive. Did you see that in your mother?
So my mom, I think she's in her 70s now. I see her, reclaiming a sense of identity now, because they've been married for almost 50 years. And so, excuse me a second.
No problem.
I definitely see a sense, and I'm very happy about that, because I think that in your mid 70s, to go out there and join a gym, meet new friends, deepen your relationships with people in your church, I'm very happy to see that. And so I think that sense of identity is merging, and it's happened for all of us too, where we've actually, a deeper sense of responsibility and contribution has also emerged, in the family. And I think that it's helped us sharpen our why. You talked about the why. And so we have all these heroes. Now we have one more on that list, be my dad. And I think it just fuels us as a family even more.
Yeah, it just makes me so happy to hear stories like that, because it's kind of the essence of what this show, Just Getting Started, is all about. It doesn't really matter what age you are. If you have energy and if you have more to give and if you have value to deliver to the world, well, then you can do it at any age. And it sounds like she's doing exactly that. So that's really heartwarming to hear, I have to say.
Yeah, no, thanks for saying that. I'll definitely share that with her. It's life can become very busy and complicated, but this is where I think folks in certain parts of the world, including the islands, kind of get it, where amidst the hustle and bustle, there is the being and living. And it could be something like sharing a simple meal on a banana leaf. It could be as simple as going fishing. It could be as simple as just sitting on the beach with your family. And in the midst of our striving, coming back to that in any way, shape, or form is very special. And, I saw this, I think it's a clip on Instagram or something. It's like, let me show you who the richest man in the world is. And the next frame was kids coming off a bus. And these kids are just running to him and just jumping all over him. And, his wife is in the background and they're just laughing and climbing all over him. I was like, yeah, that's the richest man in the world. And it's the simplest things that actually do pop. Again, in the complexity of all the things that we're trying to do, the simple things are the most powerful.
Yeah, it brings us back to the whole flora and fauna fascination that you have.
No.
Is there anything better? Like, we have a flower farm at home, and there is just nothing better than seeing that flower erupt in the springtime, and it fills the room with light and happiness and nature and wonder. It's just amazing. It sounds like you enjoy the same things. Let's talk technology. Let's talk career. Where did you want to go, and how quickly did you reach it?
Oh my goodness. This was one where I think I don't think I was I think I was more of a roamer when it comes to career. Like, you're very opportunistic, like, oh, technology, I kind of like this, so you go this direction. And so I started out my journey in tech, and I loved the way tech made things just easy and being able to communicate with people. So I started really on the networking engineering front, really like crawling and plugging in cables and making things work and computers talk to each other. And my background or traditional training, undergrad in computer engineering, a couple of master's degrees, but I've always remained in how tech can make the world an easier place and communicating with people and things like that. And so my career journey was very opportunistic, so to speak. And so after the computer engineering goal, then I was like, okay, great. The next thing is the master's degree, right? And so you do that. And I was picked up by Microsoft kind of halfway into my master's degree, which is pretty awesome. So I was able to take the subjects I wanted to take versus like, oh my gosh, I've got to, go in this particular direction. And joined Microsoft, did that for 6 years in kind of like a product management role. And I felt like I was hitting my cap when it came to learning. It's like, okay, I'm doing the same things over and over. And product management, to a certain extent, it's a rinse and repeat type of profession. Except, the products are getting bigger or the teams are getting bigger. It's very much rinse and repeat. And so I left to start a startup called FlightSpeak, which was, I love to travel. And, it was about rating your flight experience. And so it was literally a survey on an app. And when you land, it just pops up and says, hey, look, how was the flight? That was the original name of the app. How was the flight? And it had 6 questions. And I remember our logo had an airline with 6 windows. It was just, it was put together. It was my very first startup experience in leadership. And I had to evolve that concept, but I did pitch it to airlines. It was like, oh my God. And it was quite novel at the time. Because at that time, Expedia itself had not begun to incorporate flight experience ratings into their overall kind of commercial package. And getting feedback from the airlines is like, oh my God, this is amazing. But when it came time to signing the checks, like, well, really? We're not really. So I think that was another thing, a lesson you learn where it's like, okay, great. Get the MOU or get the customer to pay, and then you follow their lead versus trying to build it and they will come. So rookie startup mistake, lesson learned. And so that concept had to pivot to what the ultimate product was, which was really about airports, which is another delightful place when it comes to people. An airport is a place that you could find anything: joy, love, tears, sadness, happiness, food, shopping, everything. An airport is a microcosm of the world, really. And so the vision for FlightSpeak was to make airports delightful. Find people that you have common interests with, find your favorite hair salon, shopping, etc., etc. And we ran out of funding before this vision could come to life, but it was an incredible experience around building. I think at the end of it, we had like 500 airports in 20 something countries. I built a team of about 25 people. It was an incredible, we raised, venture capital. So it was an incredible, incredible journey. One that I think my hardest experience, but then also my most rewarding, along that journey. And that's kind of led me to, and then I went back to, when that failed, I went back to Amazon for a while. Didn't really like the culture there. I read today that they're laying off 14,000 people. It's a really interesting thing that was happening in the world in tech today. And then less than a year later, I changed my mind and I got this warm invitation to go back to Microsoft. And so I was in the Microsoft team building mobile apps as a product manager. And then last year, I was part of the layoff set in October. And so that was a very interesting experience, which kind of led me to the two initiatives that, kind of working on today. But the layoff was another defining moment where being a leader in a tech world and doing all these things and then being laid off, it's like, wow, okay, like, I didn't actually tie a lot of my identity to the company, although it's a very prestigious company. But I think I'm grateful that I didn't actually do that, because I've learned as I've led this laid off community, the more your identity is tied to your company, the harder it is to recover if you do get laid off. It's just, it's so directly correlated that I've seen this firsthand. And so that was, I think,
All
another
right.
career
Yeah, I
defining
know.
moment.
Yeah, so I need to get to the nub of this. So you, in your career with Microsoft, for a short time with Amazon, back to Microsoft, I'm hearing that there was a very strong entrepreneurial streak present in you all through that. Did you genuinely have a strong interest in what you were doing with the corporates, or did you always want to be doing your own thing?
I think it was something that emerged over time. I think that I'm an incredibly curious person, and I tend to run as fast as I can in specific directions. In large companies, you have more or less a clear mandate, but you also have a clear role. And so for the more mature companies, there are fewer silos. For larger companies, the silos exist for efficiency's sake, and they can get into your way if you're trying to do multiple things. But I think when you have a large curiosity set, a large portfolio of skills, you want to do more than you're allowed to do. And you hit a point where you can keep on getting promoted, but you're getting promoted into areas that you don't have interest in. And so then you start to itch around, okay, I could do something else. What do I really, really want to do here? And so my first startup adventure was building apps. I'd never built apps before, but I knew I wanted to do more. So that was a learning experience that kicked off a business. Now with what I'm doing, I come in with a lot more clarity around what the problem is we're trying to solve, and how do you monetize? How do you build a business out of this? And so I think that I always look at whether it's a role or a situation with a sense of, how can this be improved? How can this be made better? And of course, that is that technology slant coming in. And then the entrepreneurial side becomes, all right, is there a business opportunity here? Is there a problem to be solved here? More often than not, there are, but getting people to pay you, it's hard, except they talk about how problems can either be vitamins or painkillers, and find the painkillers, because yes, especially if it's acute, people will try and solve that problem. Vitamins, it's a gym membership. They may go, they may not go. Get the money, but really what you want to do is ensure that the person is losing weight and getting healthy and stuff like that. And so I tend to straddle between painkillers and vitamins when it comes to some of the problems I try and solve. But I think that for me is a response to, this could be done better. And many times in corporate, you're not given that freedom to go fix it. And so that's where I think the entrepreneurial streak comes in.
Yeah, because you're kind of pushed into a swim lane and you're kind of forced to stay there. Yeah.
Yeah.
How much was or at all were your endeavors fueled by good coffee? When did that start? When did that start?
Oh boy. You know, I went to in Colombia, I went to a coffee kind of picking experience. So they have these experiences at Airbnb, and you can go to the coffee farm and pick some and watch them as they roast it. So you go from farm to table in one afternoon. Of course, it's not the same bean, but you know, and right at the beginning, they brought all of us together, and people from all around the world. Like you're looking around, like oh my gosh, like people from Europe and Africa and the U.S. and Canada. You can find you find Canadians everywhere. I love Canadians. They're just everywhere around the world. Um, and the host said, "In one word, what does coffee mean to you?" And that was where I knew I had stumbled into something special. It wasn't just a beverage that I enjoyed; it was something very personal to people. And some people said peace, harmony, family, productivity, but everybody had a story around what this drink meant to them. And I said, it's my morning ritual, but to me, it's a sense of calm. It's a sense of tranquility and how I begin my day, you know. And so I think for me, a lot of my endeavors begin in that place because I think in the place of meditation, coffee, and tranquility, all these ideas start to emerge. And then you start to write them down. And before you know it, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to chase this thing. And there's some things I really do believe in the muse. And there are moments that, for lack of a better word, the gods whisper to us. And it's like you have to answer. It's like, oh my gosh, I have this idea. What am I going to do with it? And so a lot of the ideas and things that I'm working on, I feel that are part of that, where in a moment of peace and listening, you hear something and you move forward and do it. So coffee induced, I think coffee creates this atmosphere for me where I can listen and those types of ideas happen.
I noticed you didn't use the word community when you were describing the words that you would use to describe coffee. Yeah. Is community important to you, or is coffee and is your life more about yourself and what you can bring to the world?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think community is super important, but in my life, and I think in my value set, it's actually quite secondary. And, and this may be controversial, but I feel like...
I hope it is.
Say again?
I hope it is controversial.
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
I think the power of a community is very much fueled by the power of the individual. And so you bring yourself to the community. And so if you don't have a sense of self, you look at the community to develop that sense of self. Nothing wrong with that. But at some point, I think that the community is enriched when you bring your own flavor, when you bring your own color, when you bring your own tapestry. And so as a result of that, I look at community as an external thing. So it's not core, but it is part of the story. And so when I think about community or ideas or everything, I believe that you start with self. You start with the person you see in the mirror, and then you go find your communities. One of the things I love about our specialty community, I think I posted this at some point, it's like I found my people. It's like where you don't feel some kind of way posting. Like you just, hey, I'm going to post this thing because it's related to something that we all share, an interest we all share. And so, but it starts from, oh, I have this interest, then I'm bringing this and I'm contributing this to the community. So it's a little of both, but I think it starts from the personal side first.
Yeah, my challenge at the moment is that I don't consider coffee to be a drink. I don't consider it to be a beverage. I don't consider it to be a thirst quencher. I don't consider it any of that. But I totally subscribe to what you said in terms of it being a ritual, in terms of the ability to bring people together in either small groups or communities. However, it's not a drink and it's not a thirst quencher. And so what is it? What is this?
So what is it? What is it? What is it for you?
What is this medium of coffee? And how can we better describe it?
So what is it for you? What if, in one word, what would you describe coffee as?
Well, I think community.
Okay.
That's the word I think of. Because, yes, I use coffee to get into the state that you so beautifully described earlier, the state of creativity, the state of calm, the state of preparedness for the day, the state of readiness, the state of, and I'm not saying I use it as a drug. I probably do, but that's not how I think of it.
Yeah.
If so, I want to be hooked for life, right? But when I think of the power of coffee to bring individuals together, to bring communities together, does it do the same job as tea? I think there's something different there. Like tea is it's a watered down version of coffee in my view, and I like tea as well. But when I think of coffee, even the whole notion of having a coffee, it invokes friendship,
Yes.
it invokes conversation, it invokes getting to know you, it invokes all of that great
Yeah.
stuff. And maybe curiosity is the word. It invokes curiosity about
Yes.
life and about people and about communities. So I don't wish this to be a monologue in any way, but it's a lot more than just a drink, right?
I agree with you. And it's interesting too because, and Howard Schultz, they talk about how he started Starbucks, and he talked about how he went to Italy and he discovered that the Italians used the coffee shop as this third place. So you had home, you had work, and then you had this place that you can go to and interact with people. And of the many things very wrong with Starbucks, and my goodness, I'm not sure where that company is going right now. The coffee is atrocious, by the way. I'll get that on the record. The the sense of a third place and the sense of community and the sense of, wow, there's a place we can go and enjoy this beverage together and talk about our lives or everything like that. So the beverage helps bring this thing in. I mean, I'm sure you know this. I mean, in history, coffee has been banned in when it was growing due to its effects of alertness, creativity, keeping people awake, energy, and I think that's part of it. I think that it does bring people together as a medium, but I think it creates the conditions for fantastic conversation. And for folks who are drinking coffee, some folks, it's just a drink, it's just a beverage, it's a means to an end. For others, it's like, oh my gosh, no, this is the target. I am coming here to try this particular blend in this particular cup in this particular place. When I when I work sometimes, depending on my work, I pick a different chair. It's like, am I sitting to, really write and be creative, or am I sitting to work? I need a screen. I'm doing Excel, analysis and things like that. I think coffee is the same thing.
I've just had the light bulb moment. Coffee is an anchor.
Yeah. I love
Coffee
that.
anchors us into a specific state where we're able, this is my experience, where we're able to do all of the above. Create, meet, socialize, build community, all of that. It's an anchor that gets us into that neurological state of ready to take on the world, right?
I love that description. And, I think there's also psychological state as well where, and this one can, again, for controversial or deep, coffee meets us where we are, versus where, we should be. We're always trying to grow. We're always trying to improve. But, the cup of coffee accepts you as you are. You enjoy it. And so you don't have to be better to enjoy this drink. It meets you where you are. You're okay. You're accepted. You've already arrived. In a world that we're always striving to be better or do new things, this experience says, you're enough. You've arrived. And I think that is so accepting. I think it's a message that needs to be told. And I think to a certain extent, tea may do the same thing. I'm really Japan is on my list. I want to do a tea ceremony there. But I have this thing about really appreciating experiences that bring you to be wholly present.
Yeah.
And there's something.
I'm hearing loud and clear. Sorry to cut across you. I'm hearing loud and clear your West Indian heritage coming through here, and maybe that's why you love it so much, because it sounds like it teaches you, it encourages you to be present,
Yes.
to be mindful,
Yes.
to be accepting.
Yes. It's powerful.
And all of that, still be able to reach your goals in life, your business goals and your career goals and whatever it is.
Yeah. No, it's an exciting place to be, and it's something that can be shared with people wherever you're from. And honestly, there are folks that are like, instant coffee is great enough for me. Great, but it's like, okay, no, it's got to be made from this with this pressure and this bean and this type of cup. But it has a spectrum, and we're grateful for it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's been another major pivot in your life, and I'm conscious of time here because I know you've got a hard stop at the top of the hour. I would love to
Sure.
stay chatting for hours and hours. However, another crucial moment in your life happened at the end of last year, and or pivotal moment, shall we call it? Take us there. Take us to where your mind was at, and then how did that lead on to your current mission that you're so deeply into at the moment?
Oh, no, that's interesting. And so I've been at Microsoft for, I think in total, almost 15 years. And my last role was interesting because incredibly impactful. I was working on the Outlook team, and going from product management to what my role was, which was enterprise customer engagement. I had developed this skill of bringing calm and diffusing very hard customer like experiences. And so when servers go down, when things happen, and CEOs of companies start knocking and saying, I want to talk to somebody. And so I was always, I think more often than not, I think 80% of those situations I was brought into the room to help diffuse those situations and manage those types of things. And so when the layoff happened, and there's so many things around kind of the dynamics on the team and all the things that were happening and with the company and the shift to AI. I saw it coming in a way that, because I saw some very, very smart people being laid off. And I was like, wow, if those guys can get laid off, I believe this can happen to me too. And so I think the mindset shift started at that moment. And so when the layoff happened for me, it was still shocking, in the sense that, oh my goodness, like, despite all I've done, despite everything, and it's hard to not take it personally. It's hard to not say, wow, was I not good enough? Or, this is something that happened to me. I was selected for this particular type of thing. And I remember walking around my neighborhood and actually calling a friend of mine who was also laid off at Microsoft. She ended up in Google. And I flippantly said, wow, looks like I've just joined the League of Laid Off Legends. And she chuckled, and I was like, so we talked a little bit, and I remember saying that phrase and saying, wow, that has a nice ring to it. But I also at the same time was going through these feelings of shame and isolation and pain, right, from this rejection. And I realized very quickly that, this isn't something that people should go through alone, and that there should be resources that you could go through that can actually help soften the blow and help you get onto your next thing. And so fast forward, I decided to start a company, and I called it the Laid Off Legends. And the vision of this was three things. One was to help professionals reframe the layoff, reframe the narrative from you're not good enough, we don't want you, to no, you've got some game. You are a legend. Let's not forget everything you've done, and let that be the springboard towards the next thing. The second thing was around finding a community and saying, okay, great, you're not going to go through this alone. There are other people who are going through this, and it's not just folks from Amazon or Microsoft or the US government. No, there are common people here that you can actually meet and engage with. So the other was finding a community. And then the last thing was about relaunching. Okay, great. How do you give you tools to redefine and relaunch where you want to go? So it was a fascinating experience. I built a school community around this, provided resources to over 50,000 people. Not getting paid for it. It's purely a heart kind of led mission. Recently was contacted by the Wall Street Journal to comment on an H-1B situation simply because of this work that I'm doing. Great to have that recognition, but it's like, I also have to answer those questions for myself. So while you're serving the laid off community and asking them, redefine your story, find your community, and then relaunch your career, I also had to ask myself, what is my story? What do I want to do? What are my passions? And so it's always interesting as a leader how you, first of all, help people do those things, but then you also have to take your own advice. And so it's incredible. So that actually led me to again, it's not just the specialty coffee community, but what am I going to do with this coffee community? And so this actually led me to my second venture, which because software has always been a core part of who I am. And so when I was laid off, I was like, wow, should I start a coffee shop? Like, I've always wanted to start a coffee shop. Why didn't I do that? But then as I started to visit coffee shops and consider buying them, I realized very quickly that, wow, coffee shops have a lot of challenges. Staffing, inventory, permits, and all these things. Like, wow, do I really want to inherit the same set of challenges? Or can I serve in a different way while staying in an ecosystem? And so I decided, after collecting all my learnings, to pull three things together: software, stories, and spaces. And the software really starts to think about how can I help coffee shops optimize in the world of AI and these types of things. The stories are really about learning and development and helping people learn about the craft of coffee. And of course, the spaces are one day I will actually have a coffee shop of my own. And so this is interesting because I'm sharing this on your show. I'll be sharing this, in a couple of weeks, but I'll be sending our first set to manufacturing. I'm launching a set of coffee cards, and it's called the Tamped Coffee Experience. And it's a
Right.
set of either 100 or 200 coffee learning cards that help people discover the ecosystem of coffee. And it is from farming, processing and fermentation to brewing and all these other types of things. But I'm excited to share this craft with the world because I think that, again, I think we were talking about this earlier, where it's not about achievement, it's about arrival, and you're already there. And so bringing a sense of calm and community is something that I really want to do with this project. And so we'll have a physical story with the cards, the coffee cards. We'll have a digital story with an app that I'm building that helps people discover coffee and learn about coffee. And I'm happy to share the links when they go live. And so I'm really excited about my next chapter, um, which is bringing coffee to the world. And that was also part of the trip to Colombia, demoing that to coffee shops over there and learning about how I can help serve coffee shops and roasteries. And so it's exciting. And I'm glad that coffee
Yeah.
has a central part in my next chapter.
You've got it bad. You've officially got it bad. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that sounds wonderful. I'm sitting here listening to you, wondering how can we in the specialty coffee community help you to bring that story to the world, and that's effectively what the coffee community is trying to be. It's trying to be that medium. It's trying to be that anchor for want of a better phrase to help people share their stories and get into the space of creativity and so on around coffee. So,
Yeah.
wow, it's so exciting. I wish you well. And do you plan this to be a money making exercise for you, or will it always be altruistic in nature?
No, this is definitely a business. And so the cards will retail. They will retail in two boxes and two SKUs. One is what I'm calling the light roast edition, which is
Nice.
the easy and medium difficulty cards. And the other is the full roast edition, which has the difficulties hard and extra hard. And so the questions are grouped that way. And funny enough, in coffee parlance, the easiest questions that are the light roast, the medium roast, and the harder questions are the dark and extra dark roast. Quick tidbit is that I actually, did research on the official colors of the bean when they're roasted, and I actually used those color coding in the actual app and the cards themselves. So there are these little delightful design things that you bring from the physical world to the digital world, and those are the things I just love. You just bring those design touches that make it magical.
That sounds so exciting. I've got two final questions for you
Sure.
in out of respect for your time here. Um, Number one, have you told your story in the last hour? Or is there
I've,
something more that you need to tell?
oh goodness, that's just a great question. Yeah, I think I've told um, a lot of my story. I mean, I love your questions around family defining moments because I think many times we talk about what we do versus who we are, and so I appreciate the kind of the who we are slice of the first part of the interview because I think many times to understand what we do and where we're going, you really have to go back to the who we are. So I really, really appreciate that. And then the other parts around kind of what I'm doing and where I'm going, yeah, there's slices of that too, and I appreciate that as well. The opportunity to share. This is the first time I'm talking about the coffee cards on on a public medium such as this, so I'm excited to do that, and I'll share more when we hit manufacturing and start to build the social story. But I think I'll leave you with something I'm thinking about right now, and I'm really processing. Again, back to coffee moments
Yeah.
with the muse in the
Yeah.
morning. Did Beethoven really know he was writing the fifth, his fifth, like the symphony, right? Did, you know, all of these great things that they didn't know that they were doing them, but they just did these things. Michelangelo's David, did he know? No, he's just doing these things, but they became great. And so I'm wondering in my life, what is my Michelangelo's David at the moment? What is my Fifth Symphony? I don't know, but I'm working on these projects. But could I treat them like the Fifth? Could I treat them like, this Picasso or this symphony that. And so I'm processing that right now in terms of how we treat our projects in life. Do we think about them like just a little project, or do we think about these as earth-shattering things, or does it matter? I don't know. This is something that's very fresh for me right now, but I do know that when Beethoven was sitting down, he wasn't thinking, "Hey, this is going to be a world." He was just doing his thing, and so I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things I'm trying to process right now. Can I do my thing well enough where it meets whatever need that was whispered to me? I guess.
So here's a thought for you, and I'm going to channel my best West Indian culture here.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Does it matter if we know or if we don't know that it's going to be the David? Isn't the important thing that Beethoven and Michelangelo put their heart and their soul into something that they truly loved, and then allow the world to take it where it's going to take it?
Yes.
Let the universe take it, and it sounds like you're doing that with your passion. So therefore, does it really matter that it's going to be whatever it's going to be,
Yes.
so long as you're fulfilled by it and you know that you're bringing value to the world?
I agree. I think that there's something there. There's a mix there, which is, wow, do you want to be the author that writes a ton of books, but then the book gets sold after you pass? Or do you really want to see the benefits of your work during your life, right? And you're seeing people's lives change because of what you do. I don't know. I don't. That goes back to values versus,
It does.
you know.
It sure
But
does.
at some point, it's like, wow, you're building this thing for the world. It would be great to see the
Yeah.
world like enjoy what you're building. And so I that's what I'm meditating on right now. So yeah, I think we could talk more about like where I eventually land on this. But there's something about just doing it for the love of it and then watching it. Just divorce yourself from the
Yeah,
results
watching.
and let it happen.
Absolutely, yeah. But
Yeah.
I can't help but feeling there's a collaboration coming up, a commercial collaboration coming up here,
I love it.
fairly soon. But anyway, last question. Just getting started. It feels to me like you're just getting started. It feels to me like you've done a whole heap in your life already, and you've traveled the world, you've done all the stuff. But I have a sense that you're just getting started. Am I misguided here, or is that something that you feel
Oh
deeply
no,
as
I
well?
feel that's totally accurate. I think we all are. In software, there's this like, version 1, version 2, version 3, and I think we live our lives in these chapters or epochs or moments. And I think there's something like that. There's always a new beginning if we're courageous enough to go do. And sometimes these things are triggered by a layoff, or triggered by a death in the family, or triggered by a health event. And so I agree with you that I feel like, yes, I'm starting all over with the knowledge from the past, and which I think makes it so much more interesting. So absolutely, I believe that we're just getting started. I love that title, by the way, Nicky. It really resonates, and it invites people to do beginner's mind all over again. Today's fresh.
Yeah,
Today's
yeah.
new.
And it doesn't matter if you're like a starting out first-time entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if you're a 73-year-old person going back to the gym for the first time. It doesn't matter if you're an accomplished business person starting out on something that's more fulfilling. It doesn't matter at all. It refers to a mindset. And the mindset is, holy shit, the whole world is ahead of me here, and the whole world has opened up as a huge opportunity. So I'm going for it. I don't care who I am, but I'm going for it.
Exactly.
Leo Osahor, couple of things I need to remind myself of that I've learned through this discussion is today has never happened before. Oh, I love it. I just think that is absolutely excellent. And coffee is an anchor to a particular state, a state that allows us to be whatever it's going to be, curious or adventurous or whatever it's going to be. So a couple of real standout moments in what was a hugely enjoyable, hugely educational, and a hugely interesting discussion. So I want to say thank you so much for that. That was great.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Like, the interview style, I felt, hey, honestly, we should, like, in front of grabbing a cup of coffee in front of a fireplace or sitting outside. There was just something very familiar here that I really appreciated. Thank you for being so open and just accepting of the conversation. Whatever I can do to support. I love the work that you're doing on the specialty community. I'm enjoying the conversations, and I see the alerts come in, and there's so much diversity there. So thank you for the work you're doing there, and I'm looking forward to supporting it any way I can.
Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, Nicky. I appreciate it.
See you on the other side in 2 seconds.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Talk soon.